All right, welcome back to the War Room. We've had another exciting couple of weeks of college football, and we're going to have to cover a lot in a short amount of time here because we got multiple weeks of reactions to get through. And once again, coming off week 9, another banger weekend of college football, at least for some of us. I don't know who my co-host is at this point. Would you like to announce yourself?
Yeah. My name is Jert Bohnson. Jert Bohnson.
Okay, and how are you doing today? I mean, you look like off-brand, like the Dark Knight over there, but instead of like Batman, you're like a SoundCloud rapper. I'm not sure what the look is over here.
So your typical host, Bert, he did send me a text message. He said something along the lines of, "I am in witness protection program. Life cannot kick you in the nuts if it cannot find you." So that is what is going on with me. I mean,
Okay.
Bert, but I am Jert. I'm Jert Bohnson.
Okay, and Jert, how are you feeling personally?
I'm here. I'm living.
There wouldn't be a particular maroon team that could be swaying your emotions one way or the other.
No, not at all. And not at all. Nothing about the Florida Gators. Nothing about the Texas Longhorns. Nothing about giving up a 17-point lead in the fourth quarter with 9 minutes left. Nothing at all regarding those teams, games, or life in general. But yeah,
are you aware that the certain team you're referencing that just so happens to have all of those losses on their schedule is playing Georgia in 2 weeks?
I don't recall.
Okay. What do you recall?
I don't recall.
Sure.
Not a whole lot, to be honest with you. I've kind of blanked out the past 2 weeks. So yeah, we're just here. We're gonna talk some college football. And we're just going to have a good time or a horrible time, depending on which team you root for.
Okay. Well, and speaking of absences, we're also absent of Thomas for this week. Believe it or not, we'll insert this audio from this amazing phone call he actually had with our president. Got into a huge argument about something coming up in 2 weeks. We'll insert that now.
Thomas, I swear to God, if you cop out on this boys trip, okay, there will be equal and opposite reactions taking place. This may go nuclear, okay? We cannot have this anymore. We said, bro trip, you cannot cop out, okay? I walked into this room, I said, wow, we're going to have a great boys trip. It's going to be great. We're going to have drinks. We're going to go to the district. We're going to go watch Mississippi State versus Georgia, okay? And now I'm hearing you're going to cop out? You have stuff? Get your stuff together, okay? I don't give a piss if you got to take a test on a Monday at midnight. Get it together. Get over here with the boys.
So yeah, obviously Thomas got into a huge argument with the president. He's still listed as questionable for the road show in 2 weeks at Jackson to go watch the dogs play the dogs, as they say. Which, Jert, I'm sure you're really, really excited for that one.
Actually, Bert will be attending that game. Jert, will not be attending that game.
So if you're not at that game, what game are you attending, Jert?
Honestly, I'll probably just be crying in the corner.
Wait, isn't that what Bert is doing? Like, if you're gonna do that, then what's Bert like? Isn't that what Bert's doing right now?
Bert's in witness protection program.
I don't know. I forgot about that.
I don't know what he's doing at this time.
Did Bert have to go into witness protection so that he could act happy? And then you're here.
No. He's hiding from life. Okay. I'm just here as a replacement. I'm like the substitute teacher. That's what I'm here for. Here, okay. I will do this.
Heaven forbid any kids to get any lessons from you.
Okay, that's better. Yeah, let's jump into the show, shall we?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, a lot of big results from this weekend. Just going off the rip. You've got Ole Miss beating Oklahoma. Alabama in a stunning comeback to hold off South Carolina on the road, surviving Cocktober, if you will. Indiana beating the absolute piss out of UCLA, ending all hopes of their OC becoming a head coach, I guess, with a 50-point blowout. And then, of course, we cannot mention the fact that we could not go without mentioning the fact that A&M blew the doors off at LSU for the first time since 1994. Obviously, I am biased in that take, but the stats are the stats. Before that weekend, LSU was 20-1 in the Brian Kelly era of night games at home. That is now 20-2. So definitely a crazy result there. I don't care if LSU is 0-15. If you're playing at Death Valley at night, that's tough.
And he won't have any further games at Death Valley at night.
We're going to cover that too. I mean, the Brian Kelly era is over. So we have a lot to break down there, but rounding out this overview, unfortunately, for the reason we have Bert in witness protection and Jert has so kindly subbed in today, TU, they who shall not be named, was down 17 points with 9 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter, then scored 24 unanswered points going into overtime and stole victory from the jaws of defeat from the Bulldogs. And I think half of America was just crying over that. I was one of them. I don't think you guys realized how much people you had rooting for you in that game. Yeah. So
I don't know.
Are
you referring to me? I'm Jert. I'm not Bert. Bert's a Mississippi State fan. Jert is just I'm
so sorry. I'm so sorry. Your Bert, who is in witness protection and is definitely not on the other side of the screen right now. Definitely was crying over this loss. There's some things said in a said group chat by said person in witness protection that we cannot repeat in front of children, much less in front of anyone who we're going to see in public. So once again, the reason for probably Jert showing up in his place today. Yeah, those are a lot of the major results. There were can't forget Missouri and Vandy, an absolute rock fight over there. I mean, just the opposite of an air raid, the opposite of an offensive masterclass. But Diego Pavia and, in his 35th year in college football, getting it done against Missouri. Missouri losing their starting quarterback in the process. Not good for them as well. Jert, since you're a first-time guest on the show, I'll let you pick which one of these big results we cover before we get into previewing next week in the second half of the show. So let's start off hot. Let's start breaking down some of these games and big results. Where do you want to start?
Let's go into your game. I think let's just start it off. Let's go right into it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be quite honest. I'll lead with a question with you, Bert. Did you have that game being that much of a blowout in the second half on the road? I'm so sorry.
I'm not
Jert. Sorry.
Thank you.
Jert. Did you have A&M on the road doing that?
No, I did not. I thought it was, anytime you go into Death Valley at night, I don't care what your ranking is. I don't care how talented your team are. That's a difficult place to play. And LSU always finds a way to make those games close. I mean, you said it off the bat as well with Brian Kelly's record. I mean, only coming into that game, there's only one loss that he's ever had at Tiger Stadium at night. So I personally was not expecting the results and how A&M looked in that game. I think the first half was a little bit more what I expected to see, but what I was just surprised at the second half and how A&M showed up during those last two quarters.
Yeah, and quite honestly, I don't know whether I'm more surprised with the offense's breakout in the second half, but also really just they were able to get started quickly in the first half as well. Obviously had some miscues towards the back end of the second quarter. And obviously those two interceptions took some wrinkles out. They really should have hung up at least 21 in that first half. But that's part of college football. The craziest happens, especially on the road. More wrinkles are going to come up. More mistakes are going to be made. But I think I was equally surprised really in the last 2 or 3 games with the offense's ability to get going early. That was our biggest problem last year. No matter whether we were doing great or we were struggling on the road, or we were freaking losing to an Auburn team we never should have won. Never should have lost to. And I think that comes down to, once again, Colin Klein's ability to take advantage of teams that consistently want to play man, which is actually, funny enough, A&M's weakness defensively on the back half of last year was they were not running zone. Elko even went to the point of saying they were not possible. It was not possible for them to run zone with the unit they had last year. And good God, was that apparently just ridiculous at that time. But going back to the point of the offensive side of the ball, LSU has been stated as DBU for many, many years, or at least they claim it is, right? You talk about all the pros that come out of that DB unit. So I don't blame them for wanting to be a pressure defense that is going to play tight man coverage, a lot of bump and run and stuff like that, along with, man pressure, being at the sticks close up. But when an entire offensive passing game is based off of nothing but man beaters and rub routes and stacking receivers and forcing you to have, bunches of guys and receivers doing this and your own guys being stacked up and not knowing which one's going where, I just don't understand why LSU did not adjust at some point to prevent that. I mean, were you seeing the same thing there, Jert, on the defensive side of the ball for LSU and not making the adjustments?
Yeah, absolutely. I was really surprised at how LSU didn't make those adjustments, especially in the second half, like we were talking about. I mean, it was consistently a problem in the first half, and I was expecting to see that transition to more of a zone defense. But again, it's just there was no adjustments made. They continued to play man, and they continued to get gassed.
Well, and the craziest thing was keep in mind, yes, you're out weeks. I understand that. And maybe you don't want to commit one of these because of the fact that you don't have your usual, middle linebacker or linebacker duo in this situation with weeks out. But you've still got Harold Perkins, who in my opinion is still one of the greatest athletes playing middle linebacker in the nation right now, especially with his speed. He's the perfect person to leave on an island trying to spy one of the fastest guys in football. And yet I don't know about you, Jert, did you see a single attempt to leave a spy on Marcel Reed by this defense, who once again is running 99% man, if not 100% man?
No, and here's the crazy part about that whole entire deal is everybody knows that Marcel Reed is capable of running the football, right? So why is it that you are not spying him? It makes no sense from a defensive schematic perspective. I mean, you're coming into the game knowing that Marcel Reed is capable of running the football. So why is it that you're not at least spying him? Why is it that you don't have him labeled as a run threat? Why is it that he's just free to run all day? I don't understand that at all.
Yeah, and it didn't make sense at all. I mean, there was even some times you could see them try to almost do like a Tampa 2 format and drop both mics back deep to cover the deep rub routes, the deep smash routes, crossers, etc. And you may remember one play in particular where Marcel pulled it late and he's got both mics in front of him. And there's 7 yards between them and 10 yards between Marcel and the sticks. And somehow Marcel still beats both of them to get for a 15-yard gash up the middle off of just, pulling it and going when there was nothing open. So I guess I can see some draw to not leaving a spy of, look, if he gets out of the pocket, he's going to beat us anyway. We're just going to trust our defense to get home. But the whole game, you weren't getting home. So you either got to make an adjustment in coverage or you've got to be even more aggressive in blitzing. And they did some of the second, but it wasn't effective. So I think if you're going to try to do more of the first, do more of the second, you still have to change something in the secondary to compensate for being aggressive with the blitz packages. I didn't see that at all. And once again, the motioning of even tight ends out into the flats last minute to create stacks of receivers and cross routes and rub routes, all that kind of stuff. The running game, what I really liked was the fact that the offensive line not only did a great job in pass blocking and with the running backs involved there too, really, really good pass blocking for the running backs during that as well. But if you go back and watch the tape, look at how many times they're running inside zone, particularly, because I still don't think this team runs wide zone effectively. But when they run inside zone in particular, whether they're doing false pulls or pulling it all with that, they are so good at handling wrinkles right now. Multiple plays where LSU should be leaving a defensive end on the edge as your read man, and they're crashing them inside. And a typical tackle in that scenario may leave him be because he's not expecting him to cross face, and he may get the jump on him. No, tackles, if you're trying to do a crash and replace with taking a defensive end, going on the inside, C or B gap, depending on what kind of formation you've got, and crossing face of that tackle, they're picking them up and they're washing them horizontal. And when that middle linebacker comes to replace, now Marcel Reed's identifying him as the read man. So those are the kind of wrinkles that a lot of teams don't pick up, but great teams have to, especially when you're running these concepts that have to be modular, meaning I should be able to run this against any defense. And if my guys on the line and in the backfield make the correct reads, they can handle those wrinkles. Traditionally, a lot of teams don't do that because they don't see that stuff all the time. They're doing it. So, like I said, on the passing game, we're seeing more of the same. We're just seeing it executed well. I was really, really impressed with them being able to do the same concepts, but with different wrinkles, right? Finding new ways to create stacks, vertical stacks of receivers, even if that's being the tight ends, and finding new ways to use the same concept, but pick up better wrinkles defenses are trying to throw them on the run game. So very impressed. Defense, I don't understand why this defense just picks every 3 or 4 games to just like check out. But I was not expecting that defensive performance, especially in the second half. And really their blunders in the first half. Would you even think that a lot of that was helped with the big deep ball, but also the turnovers as well?
So I'm assuming you're talking about A&M's defense, correct?
Correct.
Cool.
Correct.
Okay. Well, so I'll tell you the thing, and personally for me, I think this was the biggest reason why A&M was able to dominate the game that they were. It was deep. The defensive line for A&M was just dominant. Mm-hmm. Dominant. I took
advantage of that freshman left tackle they dared to put
absolutely.
In there.
And I mean, I know LSU had a lot of offensive line issues, and those have been showing up throughout the season. But still, though, I mean, A&M's defensive line just got after Nussmeier, and that basically shut down LSU's offense. I mean, I know LSU's offense has had struggles throughout the entire season, but I mean that defensive line really impressed me, and I see them. I mean, they're going to be a problem for anybody they play moving forward. I was
for
really
some
impressed.
reason, unless you're Arkansas,
really
I still don't understand that. Either Taylon Green is the new touchdown Jesus, or they just didn't get the right guys off the bus.
I mean, sometimes it's just one game. Bobby Petrino's a great offensive-minded coach. I think that has some factors in there. Mm-hmm. But again, let's see what happens in these next upcoming weeks with that defensive performance for A&M. I don't see any reason right now as to why it would change, frankly. I mean, they've done it multiple times.
Anything good can change in a heartbeat.
They've done it multiple times this season. They've done it against Mississippi State. They've done it against LSU. They've done it against Notre Dame. I'm really impressed.
Well, I mean, I am right now. I'm still holding my breath until we get through like week 10 because, I was feeling very, very similar to this last year. And then we went into South Carolina and all of a sudden Lenore Sellers turned into prime Cam Newton. And we were just bouncing off of him like he had the Mario star.
So here's the thing too, though. If you look at A&M's schedule, I mean, I talked with Bert about the schedule and okay. he had some choice words. He said something along the lines of, I don't know who A&M sucked off to get that kind of an SEC schedule, but oh my gosh, like you want to talk about teams that they don't have to face. They don't have to face Alabama. They don't have to face Georgia. They don't have to face Tennessee. They don't have to face Ole Miss. They don't have to face they don't have to face Oklahoma. The best teams currently that they will face this season are probably Notre Dame and Missouri.
I think that LSU game, when we get to the end of the season, depending on how the team implodes or doesn't implode,
LSU
looks stronger.
So here's the other thing about LSU, and we can kind of transition and focus on them now.
Yes, we need
LSU. I mean, you want to talk about the wheels completely falling off the bus. I mean, let's not forget, people were picking this team to win the national championship in the preseason.
And ever since 2022, they have been, because they've had the roster that should deliver one.
But that's the thing, though. It's you go out and everybody thought you performed well against Clemson. Clemson turned into trash. But then it has just been this offensive just wasteland. You can't do anything. You're putting all your pressure on the defense to perform, and it's just not there. And part of the reason I think is we always talk about expectations versus, what actually transpires during the season, right? And I guess to a certain extent, Penn State has kind of fallen in this pit as well, where you have really high expectations going into the season and you don't necessarily perform. And next thing you know, people are trying to overreact and make drastic changes to a program. And I think that's part of the reason why you saw just such a quick firing of Brian Kelly. And I mean, I can get it.
Well, look at the pattern, right? Penn State fired, Sam Pittman and Archie fired, right? Now Brian Kelly fired. Who else? Who else are we?
Billy Napier.
We're dang near there with Mike Norvell with Florida State.
Hugh Freeze, Auburn.
He's on the hot seat too. I mean, a lot of these programs are doing the same thing of pulling them early before we can do any more damage. And I see both sides of it. The one side is you want to have the guy out and your new guy hired before the end of the season for recruiting purposes. But on the other side, I hate it for the players. That's a different conversation. But on the LSU side, Brian Kelly getting dismissed Sunday night after the game. And wow. Even though I knew it was getting bad for him, I thought they would pull a Coach O like what they did, 5 years ago, and just tell him, look, you're getting fired, but you have the end of the season to keep the team together, try to get results, etc. Just know there's going to be about $50 million waiting for you on the back end of this, so you better keep a smile on your face. But I mean, what was your reaction, and what do you think is the main reason you're seeing in regards to pulling him so early and really just the lack of performance over 4 years?
So Brian Kelly is a little bit of a different story, I think, than necessarily like a James Franklin. I mean, Brian Kelly has been on the hot seat for years, essentially. I mean, it's just not performing against the teams that you need to perform against. I saw a stat where it was basically, I think it was Coach O against top 25 opponents was winning 2 out of every 3 games. Brian Kelly's only winning 1 out of 3 games. And yet the contract that Brian Kelly is getting is insanely more impressive than Coach O's. And it's one of those things where I think it's and it kind of speaks to the age of college football where we're in, where it's you need to get results and you need to get them now. And if you're not getting them now, then you're gone. And frankly, talking to LSU fans, I mean, a lot of them are surprised Brian Kelly lasted this long. And frankly, I thought they were going to get rid of him at the last season. So had he performed, I think, I mean, obviously you have to reevaluate, like you're not going to get rid of him, but now the expectations were to at least compete for the SEC. It is very apparent you're nowhere close to that. So get rid of him. He's gone. Pull all the boosters together, put the money in a bucket and send him on his way.
Or literally the freaking governor, because he's involved in that decision as well.
Yeah. That's
wild.
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you look at Brian Kelly in the LSU era, let's not forget he left a program. At the time he left, they were still on the very outside cuffs looking in at a potential playoff spot. If 1 or 2 things went their way, they were the first person out potentially looking at getting bumped in. Let's not forget that.
So that's another thing that's another point that I've considered as well. I mean, Notre Dame doesn't necessarily play a whole lot of top quality opponents throughout the season.
No.
Correct?
Especially during the Brian Kelly era.
And so now all of a sudden it's like, okay, now you're going and you're transitioning to LSU where you're playing a top 25 opponent every single week. I have to question, who thought that was a good idea?
Well, look, there's multiple big things that were. I mean, let's just go through them. Okay, with the Brian Kelly era, we can start with the fact that, like I said, he left in the middle of the season, and I get it. But sometimes you either say yes in the 5-minute window you have with somebody for an opportunity, or you say no and you lose it. I understand. Big boy decisions being made, but like I said, your team's on the cusp of possibly getting in that spot in the playoff. You ditch them. You make him wake up at 6 a.m. the next morning, if I remember correctly, after a road trip when they got home at 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning just for you to give a 30-second speech saying, hey, sorry, bye, I'm out of here. Pleasure, maybe not coaching you, who knows. and see you. And by the way, 48 hours from now, I know I'm from freaking Pennsylvania or Massachusetts or whatever it freaking is, but I'm going to be faking a Southern accent in front of 40,000 people at a basketball stadium acting like I'm freaking from Cajun country. Let's not forget that, okay? You know, it's a great day for me and my family to be a Tiger, and we're just so excited. Get it out of here. You should have never gone that route. Matter of fact, I don't know why you were doing that while you fired a bunch of guys that were Louisiana natives from your staff. When you clear those people out,
guess where
you're
they're
going to
at
go the hot
now.
seat quick, buddy. I'm on fire on this one.
Now.
Yeah, guess
where
they're
at now.
You put Tommy Moffitt out in the rain, the guy who saw 3 national championships over 2 decades with you guys, and where's he at now? At Texas A&M, fixing the very problem we had for the last 15 years, which was strength and conditioning. I'm not done yet. You also go in there. You talk about in that dadgum thing where you came in there with your fake Southern accent. You talk about, I haven't even won all my games yet. Well, guess what, buddy? The only games you won were the ones that you were absolutely double-digit favored to win. You talked about the ranked teams era. The Brian Kelly era was 5-11 against ranked teams, right? Along with that, let's talk about, did he have the talent to convert and win those big games? He absolutely did. His first year in 22, 12th ranked recruiting class. After that, for the next 3 years, it didn't fall below 9th. So you had top 10 recruiting for the next 3 years that you should have converted.
LSU recruits themselves.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
are the easiest team to recruit for in the country.
Yeah, you got to get dadgum swimming pool in the shape of your logo in your campus, and you got dadgum money and booze everywhere. You've got everything you want. You've been a pipeline forever. You've been able to out-recruit Houston, who's a state away from A&M and TU for decades. So there's no excuses.
It's still not that Aggie money, but they still have some money. Just saying.
Look,
saying.
But during these first 2 years, it wasn't there in regards to compared to LSU. The pipeline was still there. You land guys like Harold Perkins. You have one of the top quarterback prospects in the country. You have the best pass blocking offensive line last year. You couldn't do anything with it. You went into College Station and got embarrassed. You had other losses that were embarrassing. Like I said, this is the Brian Kelly that went in there. And let's talk about his coaching mentality, okay? I think what you saw last night and the other big games he's lost against top 10 ranked opponents tells you exactly the kind of mentality Brian Kelly came into this program expecting to do. He expected to come in here and have the CEO mentality of, I'm just going to hire my own guys, or some staffers going to come in my program that I don't even interview, I don't even see, but I'm expecting to bring in who I believe are the right pieces, and I'm not going to call plays. I'm not going to be making adjustments. I'm just a guy who's going to walk around this building, who's going to be the CEO mentality of just, I'm trying to hold it. I'm going to be reviewing everything and try to hold it to a winning standard. Well, guess what? When you're not directly involved in the development, you're not directly involved in the play calling, that's how you end up with a guy who's sitting there with a red face on his Saturday night in his own ballpark, home field in Baton Rouge, who the only thing you see him do for freaking 3.5 hours is flip the headset down and go, WTF are we doing, Joe? Or turn to the left and say, that's going to cost you your effing job, special teams coordinator with his hat on in a weird direction. Like, that's all he's doing. Did you see him going into the huddle with his guys and making adjustments? No, he's just pacing the sideline like he's the CEO watching his company go under. That's not a guy who's going to change culture and is going to instill a winning culture. He's actually got the opposite of Jimbo Fisher's problem. Jimbo Fisher was trying to do too much, with too much responsibilities, and did not hire the right guys under him to take on a responsibility from him. You got one man doing too much. That's how you end up with what happened with Jimbo. So Brian Kelly's got the opposite problem. And along with that, this is a guy that continues to not develop his own players, whether he was at Notre Dame or over at LSU. That was what failed to get him over the hump. And when you set Tommy Moffitt out in the rain, that was one of the first things you did when you came in, despite everybody in that dadgum state telling you better keep him in there. That was the first sign of him saying, well, I'm going to do things my way, but I'm also going to be hands off so I can blame other people. He cleared out an entire defensive staff just 18 months ago. So
that's the nature of the beast, though, nowadays. It's when you hire a head coach, they're going to do it their way. And if that means getting rid of everything that was pre-existing, and here's the conversation, though, Cole, it's had it worked, we would be sitting here going, he's a genius. He's a genius. But again,
I feel like when they're trying to make this work, they're trying to do a Saban-like mentality. Do we see Saban calling a bunch of plays on either side of the ball? No, but he was the guy that was also going in there during practice and directly intervening in developing players and altering strategy. And when something went wrong, you saw Saban go to his players, to his OCs, and make the adjustments. Not just say, WTF are we doing? He's going in there and saying, we got to change this and this. He may throw a freaking chair. He may go and scream saying, Miss Terry's going to come back here and whip your guys' butts on Sunday morning breakfast, but he's going to make adjustments. And that's the difference between a winning standard and not. When you're just the guy saying, WTF are we doing, and cussing out your own staff instead of in the moment making the adjustments, that's the difference.
But to have that CEO mentality, right, you need to have trust in your OC. You need to have trust in your DC. You need to have trust in your staff. And so that's what I'm saying is if you're going to develop that Nick Saban mentality, you have to have your right pieces in place. And if you think that the pieces that are pre-existing don't fit your scheme or don't fit the team you're trying to build, you have to get rid of them. You just have to move on from them.
Yeah, and look, if you're trying to be Mr. CEO mentality and be that guy that's like the glue filler between all the different phases of the game, and you want to be able to bounce around and go work on offense a little bit, go work on defense for a little bit, go work on player development for a little bit, then you can't be going to the dadgum beach on the bye weeks when you're sitting here on your fourth year failing to deliver with the talent. And like I said, if you're not calling plays, if you're not directly intervening on strategy and developing players, then at a minimum, you can't be the guy sitting there with your own guys that you hired and gave them all the keys and just going, WTF are we doing? And then flipping the headset up. You've added zero value. And I think that's exactly what Brian Kelly has done through these 4 years. I think every LSU fan I've talked to is happy he's gone. They want to get somebody in there who actually understands the culture down there, who wants to get the core staffers that were there beforehand back if they can. And once again, they want someone who will be more directly involved and not just be a guy who just, cuts and reloads it. Like I said, this is a guy who cleared out an entire defensive staff 18 months ago. And when things are going wrong on either side of the ball, like I said, the only thing he's doing, flipping the headset down, WTF are we doing, Joe? Or special teams coordinator. That just cost you your mother effing job. Okay, how about saying something like, hey, next punt return, freaking kick it out of bounds. Let's just do that. Nothing. Name me one big game where Brian Kelly made a second half adjustment that was just pivotal. You saw direct input. You saw him go to the sideline. You saw him flip the headset down, and he's not cussing the guy out. He's focused and saying, "We need." Like you can just see in his actual emotion. Like, can you name one? I can't.
Maybe Clemson. That's the only thing that possibly comes to mind.
I
didn't
watch
see
the
an
Clemson
adjustment.
game, but I haven't seen it.
I didn't see an adjustment.
Yeah, exactly. So, like I said, that is what causes you to go 5-11 against ranked teams. And like I said, in LSU, this is a place that's starving for a new beginning and a new actual culture to be installed. Not just a guy who's just happy to be walking around with LSU on his chest and, I get the big SEC paycheck and yada, yada, yada. And I expect to be able to just have CEO on my freaking chest and all the good OCs, all the good DCs, all the good strength and conditioning guys just want to come over to me because I am CEO. This is LSU. Bow down to me.
So here's my question.
Yeah,
here's my question for you, Cole. You talk about a new change. You talk about having somebody that's familiar with the LSU culture. Who's going to fill that role? I know the job just opened, but well,
first let's talk about who's filling the role right now. Okay, and they do have a bye week to try to get an install package in there. The interim head coach is going to be Frank Wilson, and that guy does understand the culture there. He is going to be a guy that is an actual LSU insider guy. He understands the culture there. Yeah. That gives you some hope to at least try to scrape out some kind of wins in the rest of the season and try to hold some of your recruits together because he is a well-loved staff member there. Now, when you're looking at the future,
beyond,
there's three big names you got there. Yeah, there's three big names. You got Kiffin, okay? You've got Franklin. What's the third one for you?
I'm going to say a name, and it's kind of off the cusp, but it seems to make a lot of sense to me. John Gruden.
You stole it out of my mouth right there. You've got some other guys that can flow. I mean, quite honestly, if I'm them, I am dragging it. By the way, the fourth guy is not freaking Billy Napier. We all know that. I just have for those of our fan base that are just like maybe they're coming off a concussion protocol. I just gotta make that obvious for them to get him back on the right track. We hope you heal up. But on the other side, if I'm LSU, I'll interview those two guys. And freaking John Gruden if he wants to freaking come out of retirement and he can lock down his email inbox. Sorry about that. I'm going to USF and I'm interviewing that guy immediately. What he's doing with that talent's incredible. I think he's a really good candidate to flip over. There's talks of him possibly being in the head hunting for the Pennsylvania job. But yeah, I'm throwing the book at that guy, in my opinion. I think he might be the best candidate because
I've heard
Lane
of
Kiffin may or may not leave Ole Miss. I don't know.
I don't know. There's a lot of rumors. I think Lane Kiffin might be the hottest head coach in America right now. I mean, he's got ties to Penn State, Florida, LSU. He's got ties to every job, it seems like.
He's got ties everywhere because he's winning right now. And look,
so
I think if you're LSU, you understand it's going to take at least a year or two for you to flip this thing around.
So there's one name that I have not heard, and this applies for Penn State. This applies for any job, especially a big job. Clark Lee, Vandy's head coach.
Yeah,
Vandy's head coach.
You got to also think about Cignetti too at Indiana. That's another one.
Well, that's another interesting name as well, because with Cignetti, like he's had consistent success. Like last year they made the playoffs, right? Yep. And now there's they don't play that hard of a schedule. It's kind of hard to validate some. I mean,
brother,
they're
in the Big Ten. Okay, I mean
I'm right there with you. But it feels, especially this year in the Big Ten, it feels like there's one big daddy, and then there's probably like two guys that are right there with Oregon and Indiana. But the problem is when you start talking about, again, week in, week out playing top 25 talent, I just don't know if Cignetti has proven that he's capable of doing that quite yet. So I don't think Cignetti is a great fit for the SEC. I think Penn State, that's probably their top target, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Like I said, if I'm LSU, I'm thinking the USF head coach is someone I'm targeting. If Lane is actually potentially going to leave Ole Miss, we've seen mixed things from him on that matter. He's a guy you got to interview as well because he's just a hot hand. Like I said, he is an offensive play caller, so you're going to get the same offense that you've got rolling at Ole Miss. They got this year.
As a state, or as Bert would say, as a state fan, don't tempt him with a good time to let Lane Kiffin walk from Ole Miss, because I think that's something he would be very in favor of.
Well, look, I think he did. I think he's even on record saying like one of the big jobs that he would have to look at would be the LSU job.
No, it has to be. It has to be.
I think anyone's got to look at it. Now, if we're talking about Lane, what has he been doing the last couple of years? He's been exclusively building through the portal. So if there's a team for him to having a reason of like that now's a good time to jump ship, it's a team you've completely only built through the portal for the last 3 years that at any point could implode because you don't have a pipeline coming through. So it does make sense if he does want to leave Ole Miss, because every year is a reshuffle of the deck.
So here's the thing, and this is just kind of the food chain of college football, right? When you look at these jobs, like the Florida job and the LSU job, you compare that to Ole Miss and how easy it is to get people to transfer there or to get recruits there. There's a natural progression that Florida and LSU are going to be able to pull more so than Ole Miss, right? I think it makes if everybody trusts Lane in his evaluation of portal talent and high school talent and just his evaluation of talent in general, I think that going to LSU or going to Florida would be a great fit for him, simply because he can get whoever the heck he wants and he doesn't have to recruit specifically to Ole Miss. The school will recruit itself.
Yeah, and that definitely helps. That's going to help him somewhat recruit the high school pipeline there. Like I said, his talent, even with the location, his recruiting talent has just been throwing hotty-toddy money at people to come over to Ole Miss in the transfer portal. It's not been through developing a pipeline at all, especially over the last 3 years. And when has Ole Miss gotten hot over the last 3 years?
That's the other thing too, though. It's not only does Florida and LSU have more pull from a school perspective and from a brand perspective, but also they have more money than Ole Miss. They just do.
True.
You're giving a coach that has proven that he can do a lot with smaller resources, more resources. That's a dangerous combination.
Well, and the crazy thing is he's doing more, arguably, with this year's talent level of team than he did with, in my opinion, a better level of talent level last year.
Exactly.
Which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know if it was a
some of that I think is just how the SEC is shaping up this year. But again, different topic.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting to see there. The LSU job is going to be highly pursued. We've seen with a lot of these early firings, with the timing of them, that there's a decision made before the end of the season. I don't know if you have this necessarily wrapped up before conference championship Saturday. I don't.
Yeah, I think
because I don't think there's a clear decision here. I don't think there's someone that is just a prime candidate right now.
Again, I think everybody looked at Penn State's a similar situation, right? You expected the team to do really well throughout the season. There was a chance, had the team done really well, that the coach would still be around. I didn't expect I expected LSU to have a great season, and I expected Brian Kelly to be around. Now that he's not, I think they might sit on their hands a little bit because they're going to get their choice of whoever the heck they want.
Well, I mean, that's questionable, though, because of the fact that we talked about Jimbo earlier. Who was the AD that hired Jimbo years ago? Scott Woodard. Where did he go? Oh, yeah, that's right. He left and went to LSU before we fired Jimbo, which caused us a $77 million buyout or something like that, or whatever it is. That dude's just chilling on Cancun for the rest of his life. And he went over to LSU and did well. Oh, he hired Brian Kelly, of which now he and his team and the freaking governor have had to pull the plug and go, oh, he's gone, $58 million buyout.
What a resume for him, man.
I know. So I think there's some top down restructuring, and by that I mean some leaving that's got to go on.
Well, so it's
at LSU.
It's interesting listening to LSU fans' perspective because they factor in some other sports as well, right? When it comes to baseball and when it comes to some of those other sports, they believe
I don't know baseball.
They believe that he has a really good record, right? And so I don't know per se if they're ready to pull the plug on him quite yet. I think this next hiring is going to determine whether he stays or goes. But let's just see if he throws out another one of these large contracts and it turns into another Jimbo or another Brian Kelly. I mean, at that point, it's 3 strikes, you're out. Like you can't keep doing that kind of mess.
And look, this is a very similar situation that LSU is to Texas A&M, right? You're going through multiple decades of either being this close or be right. And look, I can't fully put myself into the shoes of an LSU fan because my blood alcohol content is not high enough currently. But let's just say I was, right? Let's just say I was. I do feel sorry for him because, like I said, for the last almost decade and a half, they've just been this close so many years, with the exception of when you had Joe Burrow in one of the most sensational lineups ever. So at least you've gotten there, unlike Texas A&M. But you've had so many other years where you've had the talent, you've had the roster, and you've been so close, you have not been able to execute when it matters most. Like I said, fake Southern accent within 48 hours of going from the freaking Midwest down over there to Baton Rouge. And then secondly, by going 5-11 against ranked teams throughout your 4 years, despite not having a recruiting class that was less than 12, with 3 of those being inside of the top 10. That's ridiculous. Okay, you can't have guys like Harold freaking Perkins and dadgum, your quarterback and Nussmeier and the offensive line you had last year rolling through and not be doing better than this against ranked teams. I'm sorry. It's the same reason Franklin's gone. If anything, a little bit worse, because Franklin at least got you to the playoffs. LSU has not gone to the playoffs under the Kelly era. They've not. So I've got my piece out. LSU fans, that was me being an advocate for y'all. I want to go on record. I dog LSU a lot because let's just say, I mean, it's become a rivalry between our two schools because of just the amount of hate between our two schools and the amount of heartbreak both schools have put on each other. So
hey, that was
my little olive branch right there. Okay, you can do that, Bert. You ain't gonna catch me doing that.
In another lifetime, I was a Tiger.
No, I'm sorry, Jert. I called you Bert there. I'm sorry, Jert.
Yeah, not Bert.
Let's keep it rolling to the next one. South Carolina almost had one against Alabama. What was your initial reaction before and after the comeback with Alabama there?
So I will be honest, I did not get to watch a whole lot of this game simply because Bert was getting his heart ripped out. But
Well, but if you're Jert, then what were you doing while that game was? Jert had to have watched this game while Bert was watching the other.
Jert was painting. He was painting. Yeah.
Okay.
Jert's artistic. Bert's not.
Artistic is close to the word.
Anyway, so I'll be honest. I think this game says a lot about Alabama and how legit that they are. And I know that's probably not the standard take. The standard take would be, well, it looks like Alabama still has a ways to go, but good teams find ways to win football games when they're down. And we can go into that with Texas a little bit too. But again, I think it says a lot about Alabama, the fact that they were down and the fact that they found a way to win the game. And I legitimately think that Alabama, it sometimes a scare is not a bad thing, no. Right? And I think hopefully this will light another fire under Alabama. And frankly, I was going to make a little bit of a bit, or I think Bert was, about, who he had in his SEC championship game. I think this past weekend almost solidified who we're going to see in Atlanta. And I think that's going to be your Texas A&M Aggies and the Alabama Crimson Tide. I just, as they have been seen, that's what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you feel that way after last season and really so many, the decades before. I've got to hold my breath till we get to week 11. I've got to.
We'll battered Aggie syndrome. Like I speak without that.
The bias. Yes. And that's why your mental health is better than mine currently, and Bert's. Jert, you're doing fine. It's Bert that's got the problem right now.
Yeah,
right?
His mental health is currently being run through a wood chipper. So
yeah. As one does in these situations. That's what happened to me at these last 4 games last year. So look, we're going to keep it moving. But in regards to the Alabama performance over the last couple of weeks, I've been very, very impressed. Whether in this particular case, them digging themselves out of a hole late in the game, getting the turnovers at the times they needed them, and the offensive spurt at the end that closed the game. I actually was most impressed in regards to DeBoer's coaching and leadership as a whole, actually dialing it back to week 7 against Missouri when they had their quarterback and they were in a tight one. And I don't say this lightly. I'm not going to say this lightly. When you think about how that game played out, with the fact that they continued to it was a tight one. There were some punches thrown. They just continued to manage the game, and almost anaconda-like squeeze the life out of controlled road performance by the Crimson Tide there. That was a very, and I don't say this lightly, Saban-esque light leadership and coaching performance right there. Like I said, I don't say that lightly because I know who Bama is at all. So I think the board is starting to get that winning culture in there that is very, very similar, with a little bit of a different twist to it, to the guy who led into several national championships and set up a pipeline for literal decades in Saban. And if you're asking me for any reasons as to why it's not happening, I'm not going to. So quit asking.
I don't think it's. I don't think it's at the level Saban is quite yet. However, it's got to start somewhere. Resilience,
exactly.
On the road, in a SEC environment. I like what I'm seeing. You're definitely on the right track.
Precisely. Other big show I'm going to talk about is the Ole Miss and Oklahoma game. That was a tight one. Oklahoma went up, I think it was 26-20 or something like that at one point, and it looked like Mateer was getting back to more of his usual stuff. I'm still not buying he's even close to 100% yet, but he made some throws in there whether going with the traditional release or a 3-quarter or even a freaking sidearm release that I saw for a 25-yard after catch ball. That was a great throw there. I don't think Mateer's all the way there yet, but that doesn't take away from the fact that Oklahoma defense got absolutely rammed through by Ole Miss during that performance. What was your first takeaway there, Jert?
So
that performance
again,
on the road.
Again, I'm Jert. I'm not Bert.
I said Jert. I said Jert.
No, and the reason I say this is because Jert isn't. He just calls it as he sees it, right?
Okay.
He has no bias. That Ole Miss team looks good as hell, man. Like, yeah. I don't know. Like, this is the thing. Like, when people saw them lose to Georgia, they just, I think, assumed, okay, they lost to Georgia, right? But what I think a lot of people didn't factor in is it was a very closely fought game. It was on the road in Athens, and yet Ole Miss only found still was within a touchdown of that Georgia team. Mm-hmm. And I think this, the whole Trinidad quarterback situation is a very interesting one, especially considering he was considered to be the guy this year. Ole Miss's schedule kind of shapes up pretty nicely on the. Ole Miss looks legit. I think they basically secured a playoff spot this past weekend. I think Oklahoma, on the other hand, that in a lot of sense, that was an elimination game, in my opinion. And Ole Miss won, they're in. Oklahoma lost.
Now let's. I agree with that. Oklahoma's got a rough road coming up.
Yeah, they do.
If they want any hope of staying in the playoff, I don't think it's probable, so I'm not going to spend that much time on it. Speaking of other people who are on a hashtag fraud check, TU, back-to-back games of having to go into OT against unranked opponents when you were one of the picks to win the whole daggum SEC. Man, I understand that your compadre, Bert, has some PTSD from last week, but as his representative, disassociated, calling it like you see it, when you look at what TU has to deal with going down the line here, what is your thought on their probability of being one of the big – I think it's going to end up being 4 that make it into the playoff from the SEC. Do they even have a whiff of a shot of making the big 4 that make it over there, or is it going to be another disappointing season?
I think it's going to be disappointing. And the reason I say that is because they still have to play A&M, right? And that's going to be the last taste that the voters see of Texas before it comes to playoff time. And frankly, I just don't think Texas is going to be able to compete with A&M. And I see your battered Aggie syndrome starting to flare up a little bit. But again, I'd have to look at the remainder of their schedule. Currently, they have 2 losses to Georgia.
Yeah. No. They haven't played Georgia yet. You lost to Ohio State 14-7.
Yeah.
Which, quite honestly, that might have been even though it was a loss, that might have been their best performance today. And then you've also lost to Florida.
So the problem is this, right? So I'm expecting them to lose to Georgia, and I'm expecting them to lose to Texas A&M. That's 4 losses, right? I just don't see a team being able to make it in with 4 losses. If you can find a way to beat one of those 2 schools, we have a different conversation, because at that point you have a quality win against a team that should be making the playoff, right?
I mean, you might be one of them, but you still got Vandy as well, and Georgia is on the road, so that's going to be real
that's
tough.
A tough
but
path.
You got to go through Vandy and Georgia with a bye week in between.
What a world do we live in when we're saying, "Oh, we have to you still have Vandy."
You got to go through. I don't think I've ever said the phrase "you got to go through Vandy" before.
Yeah.
These are wild times.
I don't think anybody
These are wild
has.
Times. And then look,
that's the other thing
you got Petrino after that too. Okay, and that's going to be interesting to watch for sure.
I'm kind of Arkansas is what Arkansas is, but here's the thing: you said you have 4 SEC schools making it, right? So let's count them out real quick. A&M for sure.
Mm-hmm. I mean, for you, it's for sure. For me, my BAS. Okay.
Okay.
I'm just gonna hold my breath. I love my team. I love my team.
At this point in time, I have A&M. I have Georgia. This is, I think Ole Miss is going to make it, and then that last team is really a toss-up between Texas, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, Alabama.
I mean, Alabama and I won't say the other one, but those two should be your front runners, and then Georgia, Tennessee, Vandy are your next three, along with Ole Miss. So you've kind of got.
So there's a chance here that you could see a lot of different teams. Like I want to sit here and say everything is set, and you really have to go and look at the schedules.
Yeah.
To really come down and figure out who's going to be making the playoff and who's going to be favorite. I'm really kind of curious to see what Vanderbilt's schedule is for the remainder of the season.
Well, they've already played Alabama. I don't know if Vandy's got to play Georgia. TU has got a bit of a
so listen to this.
4 games, really 3 of the 4.
Vanderbilt still is going to play Texas this weekend, right? Interesting game. And then they have Auburn, which should be a win. Kentucky, which should be a win, and then they finish it off with Tennessee, 7-1. If they find a way to beat Texas and go in with only 2 losses, let's assume they lose to Tennessee. Depending on how bad they lose that game, that's a 9. What would it be?
It'd be a 10-win team if you call it just
10-win team. 10-win team.
They'd have
that's a guarantee then.
That's a guarantee. You've got to be in. Wild times. Vandy Pipp is in full action right now. He was on College Game Day. It was awesome. If they can win out, that's going to be tough with what they got left.
No, I think you're going to be favored against Oklahoma. That game is at home. New Mexico State, Florida, and then Vanderbilt. So Tennessee is at 2 losses right now. If they went out, Tennessee is so. It's interesting here because you say 4 teams, right? I can see more.
I think that depends more on how the Big Ten situation comes out because I think there's only be one team coming from the Big 12 in there. I think it's only going to be with the downfall of Arizona State and Texas Tech. That's the only team I could see coming out of there. I mean, you do have UH, who's still 6-1, but they got completely blown out by Tech. So if they'd come in, they'd have to run the table perfect, and maybe they'd be 12, maybe. I don't think it's going to happen. Cincinnati's schedule not there. So when you look elsewhere, the ACC is a mess. Right now, you've got Georgia Tech and Miami, who might be maybes. One of the two is going to win the conference, right? But in regards to keeping it perfect and letting it roll, you could have. I think you're going to have a max of 2 teams from the ACC. So that's 3 spots taken up right now. Right now, with the downfall of Penn State, so you've got 3 spots taken up right now. Big Ten still to go. You're probably going to get Ohio State,
Oregon.
You're probably going to sneak into Indiana and Oregon.
3.
Yeah, so now you've got 6 spots left still. So that's going to be very interesting.
So this is where things kind of get really interesting for me because going into the season we had all this conversation about automatic qualifiers and stuff like that. We have to have this conversation of just because you're in a Power 4 conference and you win that conference, I don't think it should necessarily guarantee. There should be no automatic qualifiers. We're seeing an example of that now, in my opinion. Now, granted, there's a lot of SEC bias that comes into play.
Well, quite honestly, I disagree with that a little bit, Jert. I think if we can have some section of the selection that is taken away from the dadgum voters, and in this freaking playoff committee,
well,
and you put that into an actual system of if you win that helps a little bit.
I think
little
it
bit.
does. And here's the deal, right? I think if you win the conference, you're basically guaranteed a spot.
Yeah.
Frankly, and some of that is just me spitballing here.
And I think that's the only way you can continue to encourage teams to have tough games in their out of conference games, like
Yeah.
an A&M playing a Notre Dame, or a Miami playing a Notre Dame, a Georgia Tech playing.
But again,
Georgia
though,
Tech playing a Clemson, et cetera.
Again, though, the problem we have with that is simply, who are you rewarding in those games?
Majority of the time, it's the teams outside of the SEC.
Exactly. The teams that stand to gain more from those. And that's the problem I have is when you are justifying your strength of schedule on another team in a different conference. I think what that means is you should have a better conference. Now, granted, there's a lot of things that play there. Okay, well, the SEC isn't exactly sending out new memberships, but play needs to factor into things, right? If you don't play a top 25 team all year, Notre Dame, you should be penalized for that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Especially when you have a team that I look at a team like let's look at Oklahoma right now. All their losses,
with the exception of TU, unless
they
go perfect through a gauntlet.
Assume that was just a one-off, right? But still, like,
you do have material coming off of an injury there.
Again, though, it's we are penalizing teams in competitive competition. This is part of the reason why we went to 12 to begin with, is this exact argument. But again, I'm, for the sake of staying on a time limit for the show, I'm just gonna drop it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's a good overview of some of the carnage in the SEC, particularly we saw. Is there anything in the Big 12 worth noting? I don't think there necessarily is. You had Ohio State beat the absolute piss out of whoever they freaking played. You had Indiana beat the piss out of UCLA. I don't know if anyone else did anything notable. I know Michigan got a win, but that didn't really matter at the moment. I think for the Big Ten, we've been waiting for certain teams to converge. And I think these next 4 weeks you'll see that.
So the Big Ten, to me, kind of seems like there's a destined path for the Big Ten right now, and it's a big match. And frankly, it's when Ohio State plays Indiana, that's going to be a big game. But frankly, I think it and the championship game, and that's going to be who really runs the conference.
Run at it.
And who can claim their title.
When we were looking here earlier in the season, we thought that Penn State and Ohio State.
Well, yeah, but I guess that goes there. I think that might be an argument against it, right? I think a lot of teams the suggestion was like you get the top 4 teams of the Big Ten, right? Well, from what we're seeing right now, there aren't 4 teams in the Big Ten deserving to make the playoff.
No, right now it's Oregon, Indiana, and Ohio State.
And then who would be the next one?
Illinois? No, their run has come. So,
exactly.
You've got teams like Iowa, Purdue, and et cetera that occasionally are your fringe fours, but they're not playing to a winning standard this year. Same with Penn State.
When you talk about creating these automatic qualifiers, what that does is it takes basically you would have an Iowa or an Illinois or one of those teams that gets in over a 3-loss. Let's just for the sake of a team, Vanderbilt, or a 3-loss Ole Miss.
Well, I guess the idea is
that's
your top teams that should be dominating, like your Ohio States and traditionally 5 years ago, your Alabamas, should be winning those conferences. So if anything, it should be in favor to lock in 90% of the time that top team, not for some like 9-3 Northwestern that skirted their way into the last spot of, the Big Ten championship and then randomly upsets Ohio State off of a miracle Hail Mary. It's not necessarily designed for that to happen, though it can. It's more for those bigger teams that are supposed to be expected to handle business. But I think the statistics will sway in favor of the monsters that are already in the top 10 or the top 5, locking their places in. Or in the SEC, it'll at least be 2 guys that are in the top 10 that are – everyone knows it'll be a dogfight. But I think in other conferences, you're going to see more of Daddy establishing himself in that lock-in spot, and you will some kind of an underdog kind of story like that.
Yeah.
Especially this year in the Big Ten. I don't think there's anyone that's going to take that from them yet. Now, Ohio State's still got to play some people, but we don't really see a big matchup in the Big Ten until I think we
Indiana.
Get to, let's see here.
Ohio State. That's the big matchup.
Yeah, that's not coming until week 13.
That's it.
Yeah, and then you may get something out of Ohio State playing Michigan in the last week. I don't know if you're going to get much out of it. I don't know. I mean, that game sometimes is always close. Who knows? It could end up retaining a ranked matchup. It's going to be interesting. But I don't suspect. Yeah, and then, I mean, do we have – Ohio State already played Oregon, so that's off there. The Ohio State-Penn State game isn't going to be worth a crap anymore.
Yeah.
So, I mean, unless there's complete chaos, you ain't got any big – you've got maybe one big showdown, and that's it with the Big Ten. So we thought it was going to be a slaughterhouse, and it's not.
This is the thing that I find funny. Like, going back and listening to some of the Big Ten guys, there was a point in the season where they were talking about the SEC. The monsters of the SEC were not that good, and now we're looking at it completely.
Yeah, the
whole
whole preseason it was the Big Ten, the Big Ten, the Big Ten.
Half the SEC says they deserve a chance to get in, rightfully so, and yet the Big Ten is just.
Yeah, it's very top heavy, and the Big 12 is even more top heavy. They can't figure out who any of their good guys are with the exception of Tech, and they even blew one on the road to a team they had no business losing to. So now I do think they have some quarterback injury trouble over there, if I remember correctly. I think they're down to their second. I could be wrong. I think they'll get him back. I think, but even with that team has no business losing on the road to the team they lost to, in my opinion. But and I think Arizona State has blown, with the talent they have, an opportunity to go and be a playoff team as well. So that's another one that's just like, dude, what are you doing? Now BYU is up there. That is a team that could, if they keep it going, they're 8-0. Look, BYU's had some big scares. This is a team that almost lost to freaking Colorado by 3 points, and Colorado just got blown out for 50 or whatever it was against Utah. So I don't know what to make of BYU. They're in the top 10, but if I'm calling a team to be on fraud check you've got to watch these guys. Don't they could drop out of the top 10 to the drop of a hat. BYU's one that I'm looking at and going, that could be a fraud check if they play the right team at the wrong time. So that could be your second team from the Big 12 to make it in there, whether they beat Texas Tech in the conference championship or they're the vote in after the conference championship at a narrow loss. You could see that, but if they drop a game or two, they're out.
Dude,
that's another team to watch.
Penn State turning into crap really put the damper on this weekend.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is something we had circled like week 2 as like, oh my gosh, this is going to be like the game.
Now, I mean, looking forward to this upcoming weekend. I guess we're kind of shifting gears a little bit.
Yep.
Like the biggest, it seems like a pretty dry weekend in my opinion. I mean, the biggest game out there is Vanderbilt, Texas.
Yeah, and even though it's not a ranked versus ranked matchup, the Georgia and Florida game is always going to be a fun one. It'll be close early.
Interesting.
Yeah, the Georgia Florida game will be close early, even if Billy Napier's gone. It should be at least an entertaining first quarter. I don't know if it's going to go all 4 and be close. Outside of that, I mean, South Carolina, Ole Miss, with how good South Carolina played against Alabama. I mean, look, when you're playing Beamer ball, you can upset anybody at any time. If you're if you're trying to make sure you round out to be a bowl game eligible team, and you're playing Beamer ball and you need to spoil somebody's parade, that's absolutely what Beamer does. So that could be one that's just another fraud check type of situation there. But on paper, it shouldn't be. I mean, I don't know what else you see here. I mean, Georgia Tech's another team that could be they could be the front runner for the ACC with how Miami pissed down their leg against Louisville or whoever it was. And nobody knows how they've gotten to be 8-0, and no one knows how Haynes King is throwing for 305 in the air, but they are. So, but they're playing NC State. I don't expect anything crazy out of that one. Oklahoma, Tennessee could be one right there. That could be one to watch. That'll be a big matchup. That's a ranked matchup.
That might be that might be if Oklahoma finds a way to win that game.
That could be the turning point.
That might be it for Tennessee. To be honest,
it's got to be, right? Because you've already got a loss to Bama, correct? And then who else? You lost to somebody else. Georgia. Yeah, at that point, you lose that game, you're done, pal. You're done. I'm sorry, especially.
So here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? And I think we talked about this earlier, so we're kind of repeating a mute point here. But if Tennessee goes into that game against Vanderbilt and finds a way to win it, you're looking at a 3-loss SEC school with some pretty cool. There's a chance. I'm not going to say they're done. But
talking about Tennessee beating Vandy and Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Well, then you could just be a 2-loss team at that point, and you should be in.
Well, no, I'm saying if. Yeah, no, agreed. Right there with you.
Yeah.
You see, the
question is if you go 1-1 with those two
matchups. The parity in the SEC is just wild to me. It really is because
I think this shows how NIL has leveled the playing field when everyone thought it was going to make it top heavy.
We are sitting here talking about, probably 8 SEC schools that still mathematically have a shot at the playoff.
Yeah.
And every single one of them thinks they are guaranteed in.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be some broken hearts.
The exception of those with battered Aggie syndrome, but it is what it is.
There's going to be some broken hearts.
Oh, absolutely. And
I
think anyone that officially doesn't have a shot, they fire their coach because that's the culture with everything nowadays, And look, this could be one of those crazy years because you do have a lot of guys in the SEC came in with big promises, came in and turned some stuff internal around with recruiting classes, and were expected to finally get over the hump this year. You think about Sam Pittman at Archie. You think about Mark Stoops with Kentucky. He's another guy that I think he is either already gone or is about to be. Hugh Freeze, like I said, same thing. Billy Napier, same thing.
Again,
a lot of guys with no more excuses left that all converge on the same year.
So coming into this season, a lot of people were let's coming off of last season into this season. Do you want to know how many SEC coaches were replaced or fired? Zero. And so I think everybody expected this to be the kind of season where those people, it's time to put up or shut up, right? And the teams that are not putting up, well, they're gone. And so the carousel goes. And I think that's what you're seeing now. So
the crazy thing is a lot of the guys that are being fired, I don't see taking another job within the next 3-4 years or maybe even other. Do you see Sam Pittman being hired anywhere anytime soon? No, he's not a guy that I think's on the carousel. Do you see Mark Stoops going anywhere soon? No, I don't believe so.
Here's the really tough part, right? And it makes me so thankful that and it's so hey, this is where I come up and say, hey, look, it was me the whole time. Check it out.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh. Goodness. Right.
He's back from the dead.
He's back, right? But no, so there's a lot of rumors around like Mississippi State right now that since we haven't won an SEC game, we want to get rid of Levy, right? And I have to sit there and tell my fellow Bulldogs, hey, let's really think about this for a second. You have a lot of big jobs open right now. The last thing we want to be going through is getting probably the 15th best coach. Because think about it, right? It's LSU is currently open. Florida is currently open. Arkansas is currently open. There's a good chance Kentucky might be open.
And Auburn
And
LSU's
Penn State,
open.
Wisconsin.
And then
It's
if
probably gonna
certain
be
dominoes
open.
fall, you're going to have Ole Miss open as well.
Correct. Now, granted,
You know,
there's a transition there, but
yeah, dominoes have to fall. Yeah.
yeah. But
And let's keep in mind, you guys have been in all three of your conference losses. No, four. You, with the exception of one, the other three, you've been one or two plays away. In my opinion, you were almost at a top 10 win with Tennessee.
but
If you
again,
kept your left tackle alive, you were going to be there. You were going to have that in the back.
Again, though, it's we go back to this notion of everybody wants to win now, right? The boosters, the money is flowing, and the boosters expect to see their results immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think in this era, I think there needs to be a little like we're firing coaches left and right now. I think there needs if you're able to go out and get a coach, like you have a big name, right? You're a blue blood. You can fire your coach whenever you want, right? You're going to be able to attract the next biggest talent. The question becomes is if you are a middle of the road school, you need to really be planning out when you're firing and when you're hiring, right? Because the last thing you want to have happen is a situation where you're at like UCLA right now, right? Because there are going to be a lot of coaches that go off the board before you get to make your choice. And so now you're in this constant stage of, well, this coach that it was 15th on our board isn't winning games. Well, yeah, because he was 15th. He was 15th on the board. And so you're in this constant cycle of just coach in, coach out, coach in, coach out. And it sucks for the coaches. That's part of the reason why the contracts are the way they're structured. And again, it's from a big picture college football standpoint, that's not sustainable. So
yeah, and I do think you have to look at the last 2 to 3 years, especially, and think the reason you had so many converge to this year is you had two different vast ends of the spectrum that their timelines all converge to now. Places like Arkansas, Kentucky, those kind of areas can't even, those coaches were brought in to try to get them to be at least an 8 or 9 win team and then build a pipeline as a winning culture. They can't even do that. Then you've got other guys. Actually, there's really 3. You've got other coaches, a lot of them that are really, really, really close to making the playoffs and are 1 or 2 plays away, like a Jimbo, like a Brian Kelly, etc., that could not get a whiff of the playoffs, even though they had the talent to do so. And those guys converged this year, a good amount of them. And then you had a lot of guys like a Franklin, okay? By the way, Napier's in that second tier. Then you got plenty of guys like Franklin that are getting fired that and it should have been Ryan Day last year if they didn't pull off a miracle in the playoffs and go on a run as a lower seed of guys that could get in the playoffs but could not do anything with it despite having championship roster. So you had these 3 different tiers, right? And a lot of those contracts were done 4 years ago when the last big coaching carousel went on. And all 3 of those different kinds of situations that ended up hitting the crapper all converged towards this season as the do or die. That's why the season's been so crazy. That's why you've seen so many upsets or so many crazy results, but so many early firings is you've had so many of these timelines that have been a 4-year plan that has not been followed.
Yeah. But no, it's just wild to me. It's funny. You want to know who I think stands to benefit the most out of this whole entire deal? It's your group of 5 coaches, frankly. If you have success and you're a group of 5 coach, well, guess what? You're next up on the list.
Oh yeah, dude. If I'm the guy over at USF right now, even though you've had some weird results every now and then, your overall track record for the kind of program you have now
you're getting talked. You're getting ready to you're getting talked about like you're about to make the jump from group of 5 to the University of Florida. Like that's insane. That's an insane jump. It used to be
for a while. The freaking OC at UCLA, who's not the head coach but keeps getting promoted like he is the head coach by their social media team until they get a loss, and then all of a sudden we're reminded they do have a head coach. For a while, for those 3 weeks, it was like, oh, this guy could be a guy on the carousel. It's wild.
Yeah,
it's wild across the board. Any closing thoughts before we wrap this one up? Like I said, we don't have a ton of big matchups to preview next week, at least on paper. Because we got the Oklahoma-Tennessee game. You've got one or two others. Any closing thoughts on Week 10 before we wrap this one up?
For the love of God, if we do not win this game, I might have a conniption.
Who do you play this week?
Arkansas. So just
Watch out.
Just to give some settings here, we have not won an SEC game in 2 years, and we're so close. We've had multiple games where we should have won. We just found a way to lose. And the coup de raw was last weekend. So for the love of God, Mississippi State, if you know what is good for your fan, please find a way to win this game. Anyway, those are my thoughts.
I have nothing else to add other than I think as a A&M diehard.
So one other thing.
Go ahead.
I apologize. I think there needs to be some legitimate talk, and I might have stolen this from you. There needs to be some legitimate talk about A&M as a national championship contender. I don't understand why that has not been a topic of conversation yet. And frankly, if in my opinion, I'm not an AP voter, and I'm not. But if I was, I would have A&M ranked number 1 right now. I'm just saying.
Here's the funny thing: they do have the number 1 overall strength of record right now. So that is the crazy thing there. Now like I said, I'll give you my personal take. My personal take says we got to wait till after week 11. We've got to get these other 2 games under our belt and be going into Sanford 10-0 before I can completely buy in. This Missouri team you're going to play in 2 weeks, they just lost their starting quarterback. They didn't play well against Vandy overall. It is a road game. Every SEC road game is going to be tough, but if you take care of business there and you don't let the snake bite you there, and you get through Beamer Ball, even though it's at your house, and I know Beamer Ball last year was at their house, and that's a really tough environment to play in. Beamer Ball is Beamer Ball. South Carolina, they could be 1-7, and they'll still bring a good fight to you. For me, after what I saw last year in the collapse, this isn't battered Aggie syndrome. That's part of it, but it's not fully. It's just knowing what happened last year. This is a different team. They fixed a lot of areas. You've got to get to week 11. I mean, if you were playing a Georgia on the road next week or in 2 weeks in this next stretch, I would say, okay, what happens there? What happens there? Just clean it up the other 3 games, and you still be in the conversation as long as you kept it close against Georgia or something like that. But with what you have left, gotta at least take care of business these next 2 games over 3 weeks. And then I think the national championship talks can really go there. The nice thing is with going 8-0 and with knocking off LSU on the road, it does give you a buffer to drop 1, but I think you've got to go perfect. I think you got to go perfect here.
I've seen A&M in a lot of bad states, right? Take pride in what you have right now. You have a good team.
I'm loving it. I'm loving
it. You have a great team.
I'm just protecting myself.
I understand completely. But from an outsider perspective looking in, right? A&M looks legit. I think they can compete with anybody in the country. Take pride in that and realize, from a schedule perspective and from a what you have shown perspective, you guys have, in my opinion, the easiest path to the national championship.
Well, I mean, when you get to playoff ball, that's going to be a whole different thing. That's something we've never been in before.
I understand that, right?
And you got to keep some guys healthy. You've also, when you get to if and when, and really more on the if side, if you get to playoff ball, you've got to hope Le'Veon Moss comes back. That's a big loss. You got to hope Ruben Owens, that little thing that he was limping off last week, that wasn't a deal either. You're deep in the right spots right now that you've had some injuries, but I think Le'Veon Moss is what gets you out of a really, really, when you're playing a top 3 team, he's an X factor. You've got to have him back. You've got to keep your D-line healthy. So that'll be interesting to see. And like I said, I do a lot of yelling when I watch Aggie football or really any sport in particular. Ask my freaking wife. But I don't think I've yelled louder in a positive manner at a TV both rooting for and reacting to Aggie football than I have this year. Okay, so I am cautiously optimistic. That is where I put it. Everything on paper tells you should be able to run the table or at least only drop one and secure a playoff bid and maybe a trip to Atlanta. But we were saying very similar things with a relatively easy schedule with the exception of one game last year. That's what I have PTSD from. Yeah. So, hey, if the 8-4 curse is still active, that means we have to lose to Sanford, in which case I'll be jumping off of my second story window right here. Let's see what happens. Okay. That is the life of SEC football. So, all right. Thank you guys for hanging in there with us. We will see you guys next week. And hopefully we get Thomas back from his meeting with the president and get him back here next Monday or Tuesday or whenever we get the guys together. Thank you guys once again for tuning in. Leave some comments of what other stuff you want us to cover week to week. Go follow us on the Instagram and all the other socials or whatever. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace.